So our final speaker, Charles Campion, brings a perspective that is from outside the United States. And to Don's point about the fishbowl, the first Remaking Cities conference in 1988 included a RUDAT project in the Mon Valley. And we had a binational team of Americans and British professionals that worked with the community through an intensive charrette process in the Mon Valley to reimagine strategies for its revitalization moving forward. And even Prince Charles was a piece of that. He interacted with both the team and the community, and that project was, it helped define that first conversation 25 years ago. Out of that event, several of the British participants, including John Thompson, Charles is a partner at John Thompson Partners, took that RUDAT idea back to the UK and adapted some of the values of it to their work and began working first throughout the UK and then across Europe, and have had a much larger impact than our continuing program in the United States has had in terms of spreading those values. I coincidentally first had interaction with Charles a couple of years ago. We were honored to win an award from the International Association for Public Participation for the RUDAT program. And their tradition is the previous year's project winner hosts the awards event. And so we traveled to Scarborough in northern UK to receive the award. And I'm sure that I met Charles there because they were the previous year's winner for that project and their wonderful work in that town. And we probably didn't realize our connection at the time. I certainly didn't, and didn't meet Charles until this year. But Charles has a really interesting perspective to bring to this conversation now, having worked all over Europe, but some of the conversation around public process and democracy has been quite different in the UK, and his work in Scotland around trying to codify some of this. And so there's a whole new sort of range of possibilities and challenges that come with that. And I will let Charles dig into the details of that. Ladies and gentlemen, Charles Campion.
I'm going to just take you through a timeline and hope that it's interesting to see really what's happened in the last 25 years since the Remaking Cities conference, which, as Joel said, John Thompson was at, along with other people from the United Kingdom, and which has had an enormous influence. But there was a community architecture movement in the UK at that time, and His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales had said at the time, we know all the planning and architectural disasters that have happened, that planning and architecture are too important to be left to professionals. And this is before my time working with John, but John had been invited in to work on a large housing estate in Hackney in North London, and started to realise that the needs of communities weren't being met, or communities weren't being asked, things were being done to communities. So moved the office in. I think, are you in that picture, John? Yes, he is. Top left, with a beard. Realised that working with communities was really important, understanding the needs, and then starting to take the vision through to the powers that be. This is marching on Whitehall and delivering what communities actually need to function. It was just after that that John and others came to Pittsburgh and participated in the Remaking Cities conference and the RUDAT, and that was very, very influential. And we took the process back to the UK and called it community planning, and started working with communities up and down the country, largely or solely initially with the public sector, but quickly started to take the process throughout Europe initially and then around the world, but also adapting the process, the methodology of RUDAT or charrette process, community planning, to a process that could also work with clients where there's no community, or where places such as China at the moment, or Russia perhaps, are not quite ready to work in that open way. So working in France, United Arab Emirates, we've been doing a lot of work in Sweden. The process works. We always use local teams, work in the local language, but there's a seamlessness between our team and the local team, and working with communities, and people genuinely respond, as we've heard through the previous speakers, as we all know, that charrette processes work. Even down into emerging economies, Indonesia, working with illiterate and poor fishing communities who've never been asked anything. They've had things done to them, but actually had nothing done to them, because they have no sanitation, no water, but they have very sophisticated ideas. They understand what could happen if the Southeast Asia's largest eco-region comes their way, and it actually can be very beneficial, and they want to be part of that. And also understanding local myths and traditions and cultures. The lady in the centre there is a geomancy consultant, and she's working, understanding the local culture and the local myths, and forming the plan around that. As I say, the charrette methodology is also working very well when there aren't communities involved. This is in China, designing new cities, new eco cities. And for the first time, we started to work in, I think it was 1998, we were commissioned for the first time by a private sector developer, and we persuaded them to use a community planning process, a charrette methodology, to work with the community. And the reason was that the communities, and you're probably familiar with this, there's a lot of pressure in the UK, particularly around London and the South East, on housing, but communities don't usually welcome new development. And this partly is why, because they get very little benefit. They get new people, new homes, pressure on services, more traffic, but nothing feeding back into the local community. So when the community was asked in a very straightforward or formal way through a questionnaire what they wanted, they said they didn't really want anything on this former barrack site in Caterham. They'd had a community, the army had been there, very self-contained, they'd contributed to the local community, they were now gone, and people didn't really want anything. They talked about perhaps 16 new homes on the top right there, but lots of sports facilities, open space, a totally unviable plan. But we brought in through the charrette methodology, the process that we'd learned and been working with over a number of years, a process where we first of all started working with the local community, with the place, and finally with the people. And I'll take you through that hopefully quite quickly. So first of all, we set up a steering group and planned what we were going to do. There was local involvement in that. Animation, community animation, we find it's no point just holding an event and expecting people to come. You really need to work with the community in advance to get to know the community, understand a bit more about their issues, and encourage attendance, so that when people come to an event, they say, "Hello Charles, hello John," not "Who are these people who've come to do something to us?" A launch, the publicity obviously is very important, and then getting in, asking people about their problems. We use post-it notes, as we did yesterday. It's quite a structured approach, but it really draws out people's problems, and then we go into dreams and finally solutions, and then take that into hands-on planning. Walkabouts are really effective. People love to show you their place, and a young me there. And then the creation of the vision. You're familiar with this, but I thought it was worth just going through exactly how we run our processes. Finally, the report back, which is very quick, often within 5-6 days, and then a continuing communication strategy, informing people how things are developing. There may be focus groups, there are more team meetings that are developing concepts and ideas further, and finally a consensus vision. And this is what we did at Caterham. Sometimes people say, well, who am I to make decisions? I'm not probably going to live here, so why should I make decisions on behalf of other people? But someone's got to do it, and we believe it's very important that the communities are very involved in that. And we developed this idea of the guards moving out of Caterham Barracks and the guardians, who were the community moving in and being there as stewards for the new community. So this was the vision that was developed. You can see the difference between that and the planning brief that had been developed through a questionnaire methodology by the council. And this was for 360 new homes, as opposed to the planning brief that had around 60. But very crucially, lots of mixed use. And really what people wanted to talk about was the creation of community. This is what's been built. And the creation of the place itself, people intuitively understood this, and we talked about creating community identity. What should stay, what should perhaps go and be replaced, how should it be integrated, movement, very important, how people get through, what about the transport, connecting the new village through to other parts, including the station, which was 2 miles down the hill and inaccessible to people. People want to talk about balancing the community, a range of people, a range of tenures, important to bring in mixed uses. These are all things that people wanted to talk about and plan into the new scheme, which is why the vision was supported. And then something which is really probably one of the most difficult things of all is actually the investment in the people, and something that people said, we want to create a community development trust here. We want to be involved in the future management and ownership of this place. And what was actually built out was a range of mixed uses, which is create a viable and balanced community and enable people within the new community to live and operate in a walkable community, but also drawing people from the surrounding neighbourhoods and also the wider area in, and creating a real focal point. Young people, obviously, setting up a group that was for young people particularly, and now this grade 2 listed church, which no one knew what to do with, and found a use the idea of putting the skateboard club in there, and that's now got over 6,000 members. Important, the monitoring of this. This is, as I said, 1998 we started this. It's now fully built out, and the monitoring of the community sustainability, the social sustainability, is really important. So we've gone back and spoken to people and understood the impact locally. As I say, there are 20,000 plus members of Caterham with 6,000 active members. It's drawing people in from all over and creating employment and activity. The community owns and manages the Ark, which is a community centre, a multifunctional place with theatre and creches and community cafe. Again, the creation of employment, of volunteering. You can see at the top there that people, not just within the village of Caterham, the community itself, but people are coming from the surrounding neighbourhood, and a third also coming from a much further distance. A radio station, massive involvement, health clubs, a real range and mix and balance in the community. And it's become a place. People talk about the hill community and the valley community in Caterham. And they're connected by a bus, and the community supports that bus. They initially, the developer in the first year of development subsidised the bus, which takes people down to the station, so that when people move in, straight away there's a transport there and gets them used to not using their car, and it connects to the station, which takes them into London. But now the community themselves support it annually. I think they pay in around £20,000 from their management charge to support that bus, because it's a real vital community asset. So that was Caterham. I didn't quite get to the end, but you get the picture. Then after Caterham, that was started in '98. Around 2000, Richard Rogers wrote the Urban White Paper for the government to bring quality to our towns and cities. And Alan Simpson, who had also been at the RUDAT back in '88, was working with Yorkshire Forward and invited a panel of internationally renowned architects and urbanists to work in the Yorkshire region to create world-class towns and cities, working with communities but focusing on the quality of environment. And we were asked to work in Scarborough, and very impressed there, Don, with the numbers that you've involved in Washington. But in Scarborough, It was a former seaside town that was really literally falling into the sea. People had stopped going there on holidays, and bed and breakfasts were now being used to house people with real social problems, it was a town really on its knees. So we worked with the community through the process that I outlined previously, particularly involving young people, a lot of community animation, and we brought 1,000 people over a 2-day charrette community planning weekend, 2 days of public workshops to talk about their town. 1,000 people, 100 local organisations, and that's real commitment from a community. Developed a master plan and understood the different layers of a place, which people are interested in perhaps one of them or 1, 2, 3 of them, but that we discovered the 10 towns of Scarborough and developed a vision to bring that 25-year vision about. Very importantly, through the creation of a town team, which focused on those different elements, and a structure in place which included the council, the regional development agency, and the town team. And importantly, the town team could sign off the funding. They were one of 3 signatories to the funding that came into the town from the regional development agency, so it had real power. And they created a charter for a commitment to change, looking at quality. People were proud of their place, and they don't want to talk it down. And creating a vision. This is the harbour, the front door of the town. And this was 10 years later. So environmental improvements, really improving and raising the quality and the standard of the place, which has been recognised, as Joel mentioned again, through the award of the best project from the International Association of Public Participation. 10 years of public participation to bring the renaissance of a town about. And also the most enterprising place in Europe award. We're continuing working on former industrial sites. This is in Cowes in the Isle of Wight, working with communities, people going through a process of really grieving for the past, but understanding that things need to move on, so how will that best be done? Using the placemaking skills we've developed, been incorporating heritage and understanding how to link places in. Understand this is in York, working to understand the DNA of a place, the places between the buildings that are so important for communal life, and then bringing that into a master plan, bottom right, for the last remaining brownfield site, an industrial site within the Roman city walls of Hungate. And working with communities on the design of the spaces and the buildings, to create a vision which sailed through the planning process, which is notoriously difficult in the UK. So our approach is about understanding, engaging, creating and placemaking. This has really been informed, I think, by attending the RUDAT and working with communities over the last 25 years. And it's borne fruit. We've won more than any other UK practice in terms of Building for Life awards, which is all about creating sustainable neighbourhoods. The Academy of Urbanism, part of the journey, through working in this way, realising that we're all professions are part of the process, but often we're working in silos. So the Academy of Urbanism was established back about 7 years ago, 2004. John Thompson with George Ferguson at the figureheads for the Academy to really bring place for place, and sorry, it's happening again. And the mantra is place, space, life. So the Academy is an important part of the journey and a partner for this Congress. Placemaking, again, part of the dual strategy of collaboration and placemaking. Now, I put these in because I know you love pictures of smoke-filled towns and cities. I don't know who the winner is, Pittsburgh or London, but this is back in the 50s. So Battersea Power Station was serving, creating about 20% of the power for London, and is an iconic building. The Tate, turning a place into an art centre, the reuse of these old industrial buildings is important. But no one could do anything with Battersea for 30 years. It's been rotting. Various developers have come and gone, but finally something's about to happen. It's an enormous space. It's actually 2 power stations side by side, and a master plan has been developed, and it's just started on site. But our role is as placemakers, and the traditional approach really is a linear design approach, and then what happens, does it work as a place, comes at the end. But what we're trying to do is focus everyone's mind on creating place as at the centre of the strategy. And this is not working with the community, but working with experts in all sorts of fields and bringing people together over a period of a year through different workshops to really understand the strategy and to put placemaking at the heart of the process, so that we're creating places for people at Battersea. Placebook is just about to be published and is terming it the Project Bible. It's something that everyone should go back to, covering not just the physical design but all other aspects. And interestingly as well, the sort of collaborative approach that we learned through initially at the RUDAT 25 years ago has fed into the way that we're appointing the architects for different phases of the project, working with the client, and asking in limited competitions for the architects to come and work in a collaborative process over a few days, and then choosing the architect that we can work with. So finally, politically, there has been guidance in terms of collaborative planning, involving communities in planning over the last number of years, but the new government that's been in for a couple of years, the coalition, has actually, and a number of you have probably heard about the localism agenda, and it's really trying to devolve powers down to communities, and there are a number of aspects of the Localism Act. The right to bid, the right to challenge. Communities can come in and take over services or take over important community buildings if they can. They're given the opportunity to do that. The right to build small developments, and also neighbourhood plans, the right to plan in their local areas. This is fairly controversial. We can perhaps talk about it if there are any questions. But in Scotland, they've introduced the charrette process as national policy. And that's been going, initially Dwayne came over and did 3 pilot charrettes, and there's been a programme over the last 2 years to roll out charrette processes in 6-7 different communities around Scotland, and this is funded by the Scottish Government. This happens to be in the north of Scotland, something we've done, and this is really, in my mind, the right time to do these processes and the most authentic and genuine way to proceed with charrette processes involving communities in planning, to get people's involvement right at the start. So this charrette process, the vision that was created, will now go forward to become the starting point for the local development plan for these towns. So if planning and architecture are too important to be left to professionals, how are we going to effectively engage our communities? Thank you very much.